Hello everybody. So this video is mostly about strategies, new buy for the week, and I'll briefly talk about Metaplanet as well. So we got a buy today, less than I thought, $765 million worth of Bitcoin, 7,390 Bitcoin, less than I thought, despite the super bullish signal yesterday. Remember that last week he actually bought more than I thought last week. So this tells me that I am still unable to predict how much money he's going to buy, because I thought he was going to buy much more than that this time. Last week I thought he was going to buy much less than that. Unpredictability of his buys, in my view, and unpredictability of media appearance, unpredictability of FT, of Bitcoin teeth, all of that sort of stuff, all of the unpredictability, using the media to create volatility on the stock and drive the price to NAV, drive the MNAV up via the volatility, making the stock more valuable to traders who buy that stock only because they want to do the options plays on that stock. You want to foster that volatility. You foster the volatility via this unpredictability of the buys. That's a better way to do it than issuing convertible debt for hedge funds to put a gamma trade on shorting MSTR stock while also longing the convertible debt. And that's why I think I don't think we're going to see a lot of convertible debts anymore. I think he's found other ways to foster the volatility of the stock. And as long as the volatility is there, I'm not sure you need any more convertible bonds. That's been my thesis for a while. And out of the three types of debt that he issues, right, we have Strike, we have Strife, and we have of course the bonds. These are the three types of debt that he issued. My take is that he's going to move away from the converts and he's going to do Strike more and more instead of the converts. And Strike, remember, they have this 10% convertibility in Strike, right? Where if you get 10 shares, you can convert at $1,000 after the stock reaches $1,000. So you got a little perpetual option embedded in Strike. So it really serves, in my view, a similar purpose to a convertible debt. What is important to say is that, and of course, last week people were like, oh, you see, there's no demand for Strike ATM because he did 25 million. Note that the ATM of Strike is and must be as unpredictable as the ATM for the common stock. And we had 7 million 5 weeks ago, 37 million 4 weeks ago, 51 million 3 weeks ago, 25 million last week, and this week we had 59.7 million. And so if I put it in a chart, try drawing this in a chart, you can see the trend is clear, even though a lot of market participants were depressed last week when we did 25 million of Strike ATM. We're back up at 59 million. The trend is clear, and it is kind of Saylor who decides how much he's going to do each week. And it's essential that we are unpredictable. And maybe when we saw the tweet yesterday of him saying never short a man who buys orange ink by the barrel, and then he does this buy, this tells me that he's in control, because maybe you had some traders this morning who were like, okay, he's gonna buy huge, so let's put him on lever position because he's gonna announce a huge buy, and then boom, he's got this kind of pseudo disappointment for the short-term trader. For the long-term trader, it's accretive, and for the long-term investor, long-term trader, I meant long-term investor. For the long-term investor, it doesn't really matter which week he does the big buy and which week he does the small buy. Knowing how big of a buy he's going to do, that matters to the trader. That doesn't matter to the long-term investor who just cares about him buying a lot year after year. That's what we care about as long-term investors. Now, going to the stock, the stock is fine. We're doing just fine, up 1.5% right now, and Bitcoin is also doing just fine. Between Sunday night and Monday morning, Bitcoin, for some reason, more often than not, always drops. Maybe 8 times out of 10, when the Asian market opens, Bitcoin drops. And it's probably because, as always, it's the easiest thing to sell. And so there was a little fear with some prime minister, X post or whatever about Japan being in a worse situation than Greece, and so you had people selling off. But that happens on every Sunday night. You have like a drop in Bitcoin, and then it spikes back up. And most Sunday nights, not everyone's. Like I think the last two we didn't have it, but this time we're probably back to a pattern of a Sunday night drop, Monday morning up. Typically, I mean that's what I would say. The price to NAV is healthy. It's a 1.9. Actually, as I started recording, I checked it bounced back up to 1.93 right now. 1.93 right now on the MNAV. So this is excellent as far as I am concerned. And I wanted to talk about Metaplanet's buy, of course. So Metaplanet today, they announced that they bought $104 million. 1,004 Bitcoin is what they bought. Now, as you know, if you're on Patreon, I don't know if I said on the main channel, but I entered that on Friday. So I entered Metaplanet on Friday. You know, anyways, I entered it on Friday. I think that the NAV multiple, the price to NAV multiple from Metaplanet at a 2.7. So it's slightly more expensive than MicroStrategy, but we're not in the stratosphere of a lot of the other proxies that were just announced, who are like in, you know, the 10 price to NAV stratosphere. MTPLF, Metaplanet, is not there. It's slightly more expensive than MicroStrategy, but I think it's heavily justified as to why it's more expensive than MicroStrategy, because it is growing Bitcoin much more quickly relative to its existing bag, much more quickly relative to its existing bag than MicroStrategy can at this point. At this point, if MicroStrategy wants to double the bag, he needs to buy 500,000 Bitcoin, right? If Metaplanet wants to double the bag, they need to buy 7,800 Bitcoin. And so it's much more feasible due to the size of this company. And I am quite impressed with the ATM on green days setup that they've achieved in Japan, and no ATM on red days, with their moving strike warrants technique, which is kind of how they engineered an ATM in Japan, you know, where ATMs technically don't exist in Japan, but they were able to find a way to do it with a moving strike warrant system. And so what that means is that when they're printing these shares, when they're issuing these new shares in Japan, they're capturing a 2.7 MNAV, right? They're capturing that 1.7 over 1. So they're accreting faster than they dilute, but they're accreting much faster than they dilute. So strategy is accreting faster than they dilute. Metaplanet is accreting much faster than they dilute. And I'll conclude with this. So, of course, they had guided 35% increase in the Bitcoin bag quarter after quarter after quarter. And, of course, you know I love Metaplanet because, just like MicroStrategy, it's mostly an ATM story. I like ATM stories, right? These instruments are mostly ATM stories. They may be dead stories again at some point, but right now they're mostly ATM stories. What I love about it is they had 38% quarter to date last week when they reported their earnings. Last week they were at, for Q2 2025, they were at 38%. So now, as I recalculated, they're at 55% Bitcoin yield for Q2 2025, and for a full year, so since the beginning of a year, so 5 months and a half, let's call it, they're at 189% or 189%. So at the end of this month, likely, so in 5 months, at the end of this month, they will have doubled they will have tripled the bag. They will have added double what they used to have, right? So they'll be at a 200% year-to-date yield. So they will have tripled their bag, and that's going to be quite impressive if you ask me. And if they keep going that way, imagine they do about what if they were to do like 90 again and 90 again and 90 again? So that means they would grow into that price to NAV of a 2.7 really quickly if the stock were to not move. And of course, what I believe is that the stock will move on this one because they are acquiring Bitcoin much more quickly than MicroStrategy relative to their size, and it makes sense because they're the smaller player. And they're the riskier player. They're riskier, they're smaller, higher risk, higher reward, right? That's the classic link. But don't forget, they're riskier, right? Why are they riskier? And by the way, I'm not selling my MSTR ever. As you know, I'm very bullish on MSTR. But for me, it's tough to add it to MSTR when I have some of the MSTR I got is a tranche in the $19 pre-split, right? So it's very tough for me to add to MSTR. On the other hand, Metaplanet is much easier to add because I don't feel like I missed out a lot on it, right? And so I don't feel like I'm overpaying for this, but it's a riskier play. Why is it a riskier play? It's OTC. You gotta wait 5 days for your fund to settle, or you're gonna pay fees for your wire fees. For point number one, right? You have a $50 fee to buy it. It's less established. It's a Japanese stock of which I don't know much about, right? So this is much riskier on the curve, and so for me, this is always going to be a smaller position because this is riskier on the curve. But when I had money now, if my new money bucket going forward is likely going to be Metaplanet. As far as pure play Bitcoin treasury companies, Metaplanet is likely going to be my new money bucket, which is a much smaller bucket, of course, than the existing bucket of MicroStrategy. So as they say in video game culture, what is it? The Chad remains the Chad. Saylor remains the big deal. But this is close to a second best. This is looking good in my view. So anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice, just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.